Hello and welcome to another lesson brought to you by LearnDrumsLive.com. In today's lesson, we're going to kind of go back to the beginning, go back to some basics, and look at some exercises and some concepts, I should say, that help strengthen our hands and most specifically our fingers. When I have new students come to see me, one of the first things I show them is something we're going to go over right now. So we'll start this out, and I'm going to put a somewhat up-close shot of just my hands because we're going to really be focusing on that. And this may be something that a lot of you have already gone over, but maybe not. But again, I think this is something that would help anybody that had not yet been exposed to this particular concept and way to build up the strength in our hands and our fingers. All right, so let's get started. Okay, so what we're going to focus on is basically bouncing the sticks or bouncing the stick with our fingers, okay? And so what I do when I get with a student, and this works for both traditional and match grip, okay? But we're going to look at mostly in traditional sense. I normally play the matched grip. So I'll ask a student to basically hold the stick between his index finger and his thumb, all right? We call this the fulcrum. There are some drummers that use this as the fulcrum. A lot of guys that seems to kind of be the new hip thing going on right now, but which is great. But I generally put the fulcrum here between my index finger and my thumb. So if you can see, just like that, right? And I play Vic Firth sticks, and it's kind of nice because they have the little American flag, and I use that as a nice sweet spot for the fulcrum. So what I do is I ask the students to bounce the stick just like that, just like they're bouncing a basketball, right? Where you're kind of pushing down with the thumb and pulling up with the index finger. And what I sometimes have students do is hold their wrist, so they're not using their wrist, right? And that way they can't cheat and use the wrist. Not that I'm saying that using the wrist is not part of playing. It certainly is, but in this case, we're just working our fingers out. So what I would suggest is try to find a spot on the snare drum or pad and try to hit that spot every time. You want to play it as a straight line. Okay? Once you become comfortable with that, bring your middle finger into it. Okay? You're going to still have this fulcrum, but now you're going to add your middle finger. Okay? Then you're going to want to add your ring finger. Take your middle finger away. And finally, the pinky by itself. And these are the kind of things I do generally before a gig, or if I'm warming up before practice, if I really want to get the blood flowing into my fingers. So once you, and you know, the other thing I was going to say is don't ignore the pinky. A lot of guys I notice, they don't use the pinky, and you really should, because you can get a lot of nice energy from the back of the hand by using the pinky. So even though the pinky is generally the weakest finger and it can be the most troublesome to do this with, don't ignore it and spend time working on it. So once I do every finger individually, then I'll generally just play all the fingers. Okay? And the same thing with the left hand, all right? I'm showing you the right hand so you can see it with the camera angle, but obviously, you know, you want to use that, okay? And again, you can use if you play traditional, right? A lot of times I'll do this too. If I'm trying to work my traditional stuff up to warm it up, I'll put the stick over my hand, or the stick under the hand like this. Just kind of sits like this, and then I'll do this. Right? Trying to get that going and still have it in the camera. Here, I'm using this finger. I'm trying to get it so you can see it, but it's this overhand thing. Right? shot. But I have a feeling most of you guys play matched, so you may not even use that, but you will use this. Okay, so that's the idea. The idea is you're bouncing the stick with the fingers. And again, this is a very beginning lesson. This is a beginner lesson, but maybe if you've never worked on that stuff, it may help people that have played for a long time. Now let's look at a specific couple of exercises that you can use to kind of keep track of what you're doing. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, the first way we're going to work on this is we're going to apply the table of time concept. And what that is really going up the note value ladder, if you will. So we're going to start out with quarter notes, and then eighth notes, then eighth note triplets, and we'll stop at sixteenths. Of course, you could go and play quintuplets, 16th note triplets, septuplets, 32nd notes, but for this purpose, we just want to go from quarter notes to 16th notes. And believe it or not, the quarter notes are tough because they're going to be pretty slow. So I would do something like this, and normally I would do this with a click, but for demonstration's sake, we'll just do it without the click. So we're just going to use the fulcrum on this, but you would do it with every finger, okay, and then all the fingers together. But for right now, we're just going to do the fulcrum, right? The fulcrum is this point. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, without hitting our leg. Let's do it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, eighth note, eighth note triple. Okay, so you get the idea. So you're just going up the note value, doing one measure of quarters, one measure of eighths, eighth note triplets, and sixteenths. Let's do it with our ring finger. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. Okay. You notice I am moving my wrist a little bit there, especially when I'm doing the bigger note values, the quarter notes, because, see that, okay? Once you start doing, you build up speed, you have a smaller note value. Okay? Let's do it one more time with all the fingers. So it's like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? So that's one way to have a creative, exercise to work those fingers up, is doing the table of time. You go from quarters to eighths, to eighth note triplets, to 16th notes. All right, let's look at one more way we can practice these finger bounces. Okay, this next exercise, building these fingers up, is just going from finger to finger, okay? And basically just doing, groups of whatever you want. If you want to do 3 on each, 4 on each. What I like to do is start with from the back of the hand, actually, right? To make sure that I'm really working that out. And I'll do, let's just say 3. So, right? So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. I know it's probably hard to see, but basically it's 1, 1, 1, 1. So 3 for each. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay? So again, that would be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So pinky, ring, middle, fulcrum. Pinky, ring, middle, fulcrum. Okay? Then change it up where you're doing 2. Or 4. Okay? So just come up with your own ideas as well. But the whole idea of this is, remember, is just to get your fingers to do the work. Drums are a really physical instrument, and as much work as you don't have to do, you're letting gravity. do a lot of the work, the better off you're going to be. So hopefully that's helpful, and that gets you working your fingers, into your technique. Until next time, thanks for stopping by.